Hello, everyone. We're going live today with Esther Goldstein to discuss parenting with PTSD. We have done lives before on this topic or topics related to it. Esther is somebody who works a lot with trauma and has extensive knowledge on it. And that's why I love bringing her on, because I know that there are so many parents who experience trauma, and that does really impact their parenting and their life. So yeah, for parents who experience trauma or who didn't, I think this live could be really validating, helpful. That's our hope. That's my hope and Esther's hope. Hi, Rifki. Hi, everybody. So I'm waiting for Esther to join. Oh, I think she just did. Perfect. Let's see. Is it working? Oh, looks like it's working. Hey.
Hi, my friend. I love how this is where we get to connect.
So do I.
Like,
you look beautiful as ever.
oh my God. We just had, you know what happened with my timing is that we had our team meeting at my group practice, but we opened up for therapists once a month. We do like a peer group at my practice. So we have therapists just connect to support each other. Anyway,
Love
so happy
that.
you were talking. What?
I love that.
So I was like, oh my God, I went late and then I rushed back here because the offices are all being used. What were you saying? You were saying that our goal is to be validating?
Oh, that we hope. And then I was like, maybe I'm speaking for Esther, but I think this is what we discussed. I said that we are hoping it will be validating and helpful to parents who did experience trauma, or really to any person.
No, I'm laughing. Of course we are. Our goal is like, first of all, Bleemy, I'm so happy to be on here. I know you have like a course coming out. And I was thinking about like your course, and I know there's like a live component and it's 5 weeks, right? It's 5 weeks. I was thinking about it, and like I was thinking in my head, like imagine right now, not imagine, when I struggle as the parent, like what do I want, or what kind of course would I want to take? And like my gut reaction is like, oh, why would I want to take like a workshop? And then another part of me is like, workshops or trainings or being part of like a community is not always about learning skills, but I literally was thinking in my head, like your voice of like compassion or providing the right kind of resource is really what I think you provide. Like I just know from our conversations that we've had here, is sometimes it's like when there is a struggle at home, it's like the parent who needs support or shifting the perspective of how it's being approached. And then when you're shifting the foundational aspects that maybe are a little lopsided, things start settling into place and don't feel as exhaustive. So I guess I'm just thinking about your like specifically your what you offer, but I think today's conversation, honestly, my hope is for us to talk about, is it okay? I'm on the soapbox just going at it.
Yeah, I love it. I always love it. People hear me all the time. We're here to listen to you.
Hello, I am Bleemy number 2. No, but I guess I think about like my own experience with being a parent, and I guess coming off of the heels of like speaking to other therapists just now, reflecting on like parents and children and honestly all humans walking this planet. One of the biggest things or the most important things that I believe that we want is to know that we can be successful. And I wonder if we could have a conversation about what are expectations that we can have or you can have for yourself if you do have a history or if you've gone through some emotional experiences that have left you feeling a little less prepared or a little less geared up for parenting. And maybe it's because, it's because you're parenting with PTSD, and we could talk about PTSD in just a second, but maybe it's because you have a child that has very unique needs. Or maybe you just feel like you're in a situation in life right now where you're engaging in some emotional healing work, or you're in a transition. So I kind of just want to talk globally to those parents who might right now be feeling compromised, or um, like that they are juggling two things at once, because I feel like it's a different, not to invalidate anyone who's parenting like the regular way, but I feel like I actually wrote a blog a while ago called Parenting with PTSD. Um, and it was just like naming the dual realities that are constantly going on, like the inner world and the work of like inner regulation, which we all need to do as parents. But when you've gone through trauma or neglect, like you're going to be working double time, or you're going to feel like you're white knuckling it, and also providing that co-regulation for your kid. So I kind of just want to, yeah, if that's okay, that we talk about that.
Yeah, no, I love that because listening to you, I actually, okay. I feel like I say this so often, and maybe to some people, I'm worried it might sound like it's not, maybe like, oh, Amy says this all the time, but the truth is that's actually how I feel. I feel so much compassion. You know, like parenting is already challenging. Like to have to worry and care about somebody else's needs on top of your own is a lot. And then there's multiples, right? Then that's even more. And but then for somebody who experienced, so for regardless, I think any parent, it's like you're juggling yourself and your child or children. And that's a lot as it is. It's a lot. And then for somebody who experienced PTSD, it's like on a whole other level. The internal stuff is on a whole other level because there's so much, like you said, internally that this person might be going through or experiencing.
And I love how you just said that, like in terms of just the concept as being a parent. And I know like a lot of your concepts are from a lot of thought leaders, but like Dr. Becky, I love how she writes about like these concepts, which I know a lot of them you teach, and you also provide like the one-on-one, like the consultations and the live calls, which really personalizes it to what people are going through. Um, but I think the concept of like being able to find that part of you, like we all have a different journey of how we stepped into parenthood. We all have a different journey of how we stepped into this world. And just before we even go into the specifics of your strengths or your struggles in being a parent, like just honoring your story. I don't even know if honoring, just like knowing your story. Like my story and your story is different
Mm-hmm.
than the person down the block. And I just feel like so much extra exhaustion and burden is put on us when we don't honor or we don't acknowledge, like, this is my story, this is my mom or my dad, or this is not my mom or dad, or these are the possibilities I come from. And I'm not saying this from a place, and I don't talk about this from being like a victim. If anything, I want you to feel empowered. Like, look at what you're building, or look at what you built, coming from the strengths that you've been given and the struggles that you have. And by the way, I don't just mean in terms of like if your parents were neglectful, maybe it's that you went through transitions in life. Maybe you academically struggled, right? Maybe you just didn't learn emotional vocabulary and you're just learning it right now, right alongside your kid, right? And you're just like totally in the dark. So it really, like, I found the blog actually. It says, I named it Parenting with Anxiety and PTSD, and it says it's time to discuss what no one talks about. Um, but I basically I could read some snippets of it. I remember I remember what inspired me to write this post. um, but basically, it talks. It's like, I mean, I could read. It's basically a little blurb where I was inspired here. I'll read the first beginning where I wrote about a client. I'm exhausted. I might just not be cut out for this parenting thing. And I'm angry because I wanted to give my own family, more than I ever got as a child, but I'm failing grandly. Rebecca sobs as she shares her woes. Parenting has been a journey that has been burdened with shame, anxiety, insecurity, and doubt from the get go. Here she continues. I've shared my struggle with many of my friends, but they usually commiserate and then move on. I can tell their pain isn't as deep searing as mine. What is this about? And then I go on to talk about how Rebecca's story and how she has her own experience with anxiety, and that some people, like, as they are moving on from either neglect, or they just don't have the life skills, or maybe they have a little bit of a more sensitive nervous system, struggle with parenting an extra layer. So, and then I just kind of, I think the first thing before we like maybe go into suggestions, you could please chime in if you want. I think one of the first things to know, and you know who else talks about it? Robin Koslowitz. I love what she talks about. Like she talks a lot about working with children, but recently a lot about parents with PTSD.
Mm.
I think the first thing is like acknowledge if you have a more sensitive nervous system, because I need you to cut yourself some slack. And then I need you to be very clear about what your expectations are in terms of being a parent. Like, I think like when we have a sensitive nervous system or when we do have some anxiety or PTSD, one, there's an acknowledgement. And number two is like, you're going to have to prepare yourself a little bit more mindfully to doing this job, or else you're going to be stuck in this spiral and feeling out of control. Like, I'm not just here to validate, believe me, I want to validate, but number two is I want to give people like a game plan to know like, hey, listen, maybe like you have the mountain feels harder to climb, or maybe it's snowy for you when you get in the car. How do we put those things in the tires so that you're a bit more prepared? Because that's going to help you get through this a lot better than if you're not prepared. And I want to help you not have a re-traumatizing parenting experience. Like you could have a reparative one.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you said so many so many great things here. Yeah, so I love the last part that you just said. You said like I don't want you to have a re-traumatizing parenting experience, which can I say something about that? That as a parent ourselves, yeah, it is possible that through our parenting we can re-traumatize ourselves by, let's say, doing the same things that we experienced that were traumatic for us, right? And I love how you're like, so you're saying essentially like, yeah, a parent would want to then move towards having a reparative sort of parenting where they're in some way repairing how they were parented. But you're saying that if a parent went through PTSD or whatever, they may need to put in a little bit more work, I guess, or effort or like time or something into it. It's like it's maybe it's kind of like, yeah, they have to put in a little bit more in order to be able to accomplish that. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that because I'm saying, number one, let's not pretend that it's an equal race. We're
Okay.
none of us are an equal race, okay? And like I am all for sometimes having like we could cry and we can validate, and I want to actually make space for that emotional piece. And I also just want to say, because so many times people say to me, where does that land me? And I first say, 1 second. First, we're going through the first corridor where I'm going to support you and give you space. And I want to just offer you so much grace and so much compassion, because you already are working harder. Like you're working double time. You're working like, the double shift. Okay. So like I want to start with grace and compassion. I think I'm just saying to anyone listening here is that I also do want to tell you, like, your road might be a little bumpier, and it is harder. Like I
Yes.
don't like all equal people. No, like you know what? When you've gone through loss and you have to live life with grief, it is hard. There's gonna be perks, okay? And having awareness, like there's gonna be really positive things. Um, the people who are much more emotionally cognizant, like there are stuff and for your children that like other families are not going to have, and I totally can go there. But I do want to say like it is a little harder, and I guess what I have to say is that the difference between people who are like conscious of the steps that they can take or the resources that they can avail themselves of is huge, because it's like we can talk about like you have a boo-boo. Now I want to show you a kind of cream or one or two steps that you can take, and it might be hard and it might take some energy. So we're going to like, lather you in grace and in kindness and compassion, but we're also going to give you some tools, because I want you to be able to not be re-traumatized. Like I feel like sometimes we can like me, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I guess I feel like sometimes there's space where we're compassionate and validating, and that's important, and then we forget to provide tools. And what I want to say is like I always start with validation, always want to start with education and compassion, but I also want to help you be successful, and I also want you to not be re-traumatized by parenting. And that's going to mean that you're going to have to learn some tools or do things a little different, like, you know what I mean, than what I would have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you saying that basically that compassion and validation is so there, you see so much value in it, and at the same time you are worried that if there's only that, then a parent might not be supported in shifting their parenting, like you said, and then they might end up being re-traumatized by their own parenting, and yeah, and also maybe feeling a ton of maybe guilt because that's not really how they want to show up in their parenting. But I
Yeah.
love what you said, that like it's not an equal race, like not, it's just it's unfair, right? Like It is. It is. Some of us just have to put in much more work than others. Some of us have to, and I kind of, in a way that's validating in and of itself, to kind of be like, yeah,
Maybe let's talk about it for a second because
okay.
I want to first like
Can I
really.
pause you for 1 second and just say somebody wrote, I love that you're having this conversation. It's already been so helpful, something like that. And so I just want to say that.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like, I guess the reason I went to the secondary piece was because I could just speak for myself. Okay. Like transparency. Like there have been times in my life where I just needed like the validation and the care. Um, but then there were times where like I didn't feel like I had energy to be receptive to a different way of doing things. Um, but but then when I got like input or I was receptive, and obviously it has to be given over in the right way. So I really hope the way that we speak about this like ends in a gentle way is like what, even like when we are feeling depleted or when you're feeling depleted, I get curious if you're feeling depleted because how much of it is that it's so hard or how much of it is that you're repeating the same things that are not working. And so I guess my hope is like, one is I want to like offer, we'll talk about the not equal race in 1 second. Like it is so hard. It is so hard. Like you're walking around carrying like, especially people who feel like who are emotional orphans or maybe didn't have certain tools or have like extra on their plate or don't have a supportive partner or have their own mental health struggles. Like I really want to honor that. And I think so that's one. I think the second piece is sometimes it could be a thought process. That's what I was thinking about you. Sometimes the way that we're thinking about the struggle or sometimes the way that we're dealing with the struggle is making it harder versus um like somewhat more manageable. So that's
Yeah.
what I want to talk about from an empowering place. Because this morning I was thinking about like, imagine if I saw like a book recommendation or like your course a couple of years ago, I would just be like, what is she going to tell me? Like there's things, this is literally in my head. I was thinking like, this is so hard. It's so annoying. Like, I don't need you to tell me anything. And then I was thinking 1 second, like, cause I was thinking about our conversations and some of the videos you put out. I'm like, wait, if somebody helps me shift my expectation of myself, shift the way I'm relating to my parenting, I'm already retaining more energy. And the way I'm going to approach parenting is already going to be different and it's shifting things, even though there is not, these epic shifts, but it is internal shifts that change everything.
Yes, yes, exactly. Exactly. In my course, that's really, I always tell parents there's two primary focuses. One is shifting perspective because that changes everything. And the other thing is giving you tools, like, and what you're mentioning right here, and even the idea of thinking as something, that's why I put unfair in quotes, because yeah, I still think in those terms sometimes, like it's so unfair. And then I often like reframe it because I know that it's so unhelpful to think in terms of unfair. It only makes me feel like there is really no such thing in this world as fair, And so and that itself is also a perspective that can be so draining versus if I reframe it, yeah, I can have more energy, like you said.
Right. I feel like it's tricky, that piece. Like, cause I do, like, you help me out here. I guess I wonder, like, what's the fine line we need that you find in terms of like, on the one hand, like sometimes things aren't like some of us really are holding so much more. I don't even know if it's fairness. Like some of us, or like anyone listening, like there might be times or seasons or realities that like are really difficult. Do you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. Like it isn't equal, just the idea of fairness, it doesn't exist, meaning like nothing is fair ever in this world. And that's why to think in those terms, I find just brings me down. Versus if I acknowledge, like, yeah, I carry a lot, or I carry more than this person, or I have to put in more effort, like that I'm for because that acknowledges my reality. But to think in terms of fairness, like you said, it's such a fine line. To think in terms of fairness, I find brings me down because like there is no such thing.
I
Do you
love
hear
what
what I'm saying?
you're saying. Yeah, I almost feel like what you're saying is this is what I'm hearing, and I'm applying it to me, is like the difference between comparing self to other versus self to self. This is my reality. Let's
Yes.
this reality. I was thinking about this last night because I have like very big emotions. I think I've shared this so many times. I literally will collage. I'll sit on the floor and I always say this that I always collage negative emotions before positive. The people are like, think about your dreams. I'm like, first I'm going to talk about my pain, my worry, or my fears. I always collage it out because the same pipeline that brings pleasure, pain, is the same pipeline that brings pleasure. And so for me, like, I'm just talking to any parent here, like, I think acknowledging first what is, right? The positive, the good, the hard, important. So almost like the shift of, instead of comparing to others, like, could we look at the situation? If you want to
Yes.
collage, like, I'll do this with clients sometimes, like, put it all out there. Put the
Yes.
words, put the images, put the feeling. Like, nothing scares me. Like, please just rather put, first of all, if you externalize it, it already has less of a charge.
Yes.
Like, but I love what you're saying, Blimey, that you're saying almost like, instead of comparing to other, compare to, this
Yes.
is my reality.
Yes.
And this is what I'm wanting to do with my reality. So
Yes.
there's a choice,
Yes.
possible shift versus, so I'm going to try to compare myself to someone else. I'm never going to hit the mark, or I don't even know what theirs is,
It's so
right? So it's like,
disempowering is what I'm like. Now you're helping me. Yeah, it's so disempowering to compare myself and to think, and right, unfairness, I think, is comparison. It's so disempowering because there's nothing I can do with it. Versus, right, if I acknowledge what's for me, like you said, the unpleasant and the painful, yes, but there's something that then there's like, okay, this is me. What can I do? And it just feels more empowering.
yeah,
I guess that's what it is. It's connected to life for me, versus like if I compare it to others, there's just no life there. It's like, what am I supposed to do with that?
right. I guess I think about, like, let's say, and my son doesn't like chicken nuggets, but let's say somebody makes like fancy dinners every night, and they're like, oh, I'm so lazy, I did like chicken and rice. And I'm thinking, like, I do chicken nuggets every night, but for me it's a matter of, did I give the chicken nuggets and like be able to make eye contact and be present,
Yeah.
or chicken nuggets and like dissociate onto my phone? So I feel like, sorry for giving that example, but really it's like, and it's the same thing, by the way, if you think about clients, like, I'll have clients or people will talk about, like, this person's talking about these relationship conversations they're having with their spouse or their kids. Meanwhile, I'm just trying to even see if I could develop a relationship with my kid. And I'm like, great, we're not looking at those people. Like, can we see if you have the capacity to either age or your frustration or your disconnection? And if we're moving the needle, even just a half an inch, in your capacity to be a bit more present or to notice the coping skills that you use to be a parent, like, you're freaking slaying dragons. Okay.
Yes.
Celebrate that, because if we're not going to celebrate, your mind and body ain't going to cooperate with you if you want to actually change yourself. So we got to notice the areas that you are working on.
Yes, and I love that. I guess that brings us back to what you said earlier about managing our expectations. Like, if we're gonna think like, oh, I should be doing it the way a Bloomy makes her videos, or the way another parent does it, then we're not meeting ourselves where we're at. And like you said, and then we're not celebrating the fact that we are slaying dragons. Like, for where we're at, this like our yeah, the thing that we're doing is incredible.
So could we I love what you're saying. Could you give me like a practical example? Like, what do you find, I guess, when you work with parents who, let's say, they have like anxiety or have some PTSD? What do you think they struggle with the most?
Yeah, so it depends. I find there's two, like, and I'm sure you probably can attest to this too, but I find there's two different ways that it manifests. There's some parents who do like dissociate. They have a very hard time staying present, and so they struggle, and so they feel bad because they really want an emotional connection with their children, and they struggle to maintain that in those moments. And then there are parents who do the, like, they lash out. They'll do like the fight or flight, like where they'll yeah, it's just there's so much bubbling over inside of them, and so bubbling up inside of them, and then it bubbles over sort of onto their kids or onto whoever's around them, because they're really struggling. Yeah.
Okay. No, I love what you're saying. So I just think, like, if we could, because I saw the post that you did about the phone, which, like, thank you. I feel so seen. Uh, so
Yeah.
I like your language. I feel like the language, because I want to name those two pieces. I see the same. I want to just name those pieces, which is either like we're going away, disconnecting. It's almost like when you think about the window of tolerance. Talk about this is like, in this window is where we could think and feel at the same time. This window is when we're able to be present with our kids. Your kids might come home and scream and have a horrible day, but if you're present, you don't need to fix it or change it, right? A lot of what you talk about is like just matching them and being present. Like, this is good parenting. You could have kids that scream and you had a good parenting day. Your relationship to the reality is what we actually work, right? It's like, oh, your kid was left out. Your kid did well. Your kid didn't do well. You realize that, like, kids just pretending to be happy, or kids always smiling, or kids not sharing with you doesn't necessarily mean good parenting. So I feel like that's a big piece. But this is the window, right, where we're present. And so you're talking about either the ones who are like disconnecting on their phones or like not really present, or there's like not really any signal and the kids feel it, like no connection, are kind of like hypoaroused. So they're numbing out, they're disconnecting, constantly entertaining themselves, their kids, right? And then there's the here, which is the hyperarousal, which is out of the window, which is like panicky, angry, anxious. Like it's almost like you have a very thin layer of skin or no skin. Everything just gets to you.
Yes.
To like name both of these, like this is very normal for when your nervous system is like at max capacity, like even before you open your eyes, right? Like your nervous system is either it's too much, so you're either shutting down and distracting, or you're like getting very easily agitated because you're like, oh my God, this is too much. I just want to say both of those ways that you feel or you notice yourself dealing are just coping because it's just like it's too much. If I yell or shriek, it's letting off like steam. And I'm trying to sit and get everyone around me to shh so I could be more balanced. Or I'm just connecting because like the connection is too painful or I can't tolerate it. So I just want to give you like the reason of why you're doing it so we don't shame it. Obviously, the goal is to be able to like go in and out of these, right? We're not getting rid of it, but like have where you're more in the window and then times that you drop back down, times that you're in and times that you go back out, and like almost raise more of capacity to be able to like move in and out so you could be a bit more present, because presence is essentially, right, if we talk about all the sexy parenting skills, life is really all a matter of presence. Like could you be with me in this life called life experience, the good, the bad, the unknown? I just want someone to.
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you're saying. I actually talk about this in my course at length, this the window of tolerance and all that. And I actually, now listening to you, I actually thought of it in like there's some like a way of thinking of it that came to me. And it's like, wow, in a way I am actually touched by the way that our body tries to find balance. Like both of those ways are really, they're not, they might be not the, like they might be a hurtful strategy to find balance. They might be something that doesn't contribute to your children, but it still is your body trying to find balance, right? Like your body's feeling that distress, you're out of your window of tolerance. It's the body either does like you said, letting off steam in some way, and like, or making other people, making, getting other people to stop so that you can find balance. Yeah. Or it's running away so that you find balance. And in a way, it's like we're trying to, what we want for ourselves and other parents is to find strategies to find balance that contribute to other people, like that, right? Like that bring us back to presence.
Yeah, I feel like I love how you're saying it in the way of like, let's first just understand. Like, if I think about, those kids, they say like the kids who are the hardest to love are often the ones that need the most love. Like, I think about either the child who like I try to connect with, who's always like hiding their face, running away, right? Or the person who comes into the room and is like shouting at the top of their lungs because they need attention, or comes in and is trying to control the situation of like, this is what we're doing, this is what we're not doing. Like if you really see beyond the veneer, which like as human beings we do get turned off because we want people where there's like openness to connect. We want that for ourselves, we want that for each other, right?
Yeah.
Times
Yeah.
where people have been in relationships with me or even friends who are just like, can I just give you feedback? Like I really like you, I like being around you so much more when blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I like being around myself too when I'm in that space. Like we don't like being with ourselves when we either need to. I don't know anyone who enjoys when they have to numb. I don't know anyone who enjoys when they're raising their voice or trying to control. It's exhausting and it's very lonely. I just want to,
Very lonely.
right.
Very.
You're
Yes.
there. If you're there, I think the first thing is just like I love how you said like appreciating that there's survival. Now we also want to help you not constantly be in survival. It's
Yeah.
exhausting.
And like you said, lonely, so painful.
Very lonely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So so I feel like one of the things just to say to anyone here is like if you notice yourself in either of those, and by the way, there might be times that you are doing certain behaviors more than other times. I think you want to get curious about um like what's good about engaging that behavior and what's that part of or what's that behavior trying to do for you,
Mm-hmm.
because usually there's like either there's can I go here for 1 second?
Yeah. Go
Okay.
wherever you
Okay.
want to go.
Today and like
I'm following you.
okay, because today in our peer consultation group, like I shared, and I'm happy to share it with you, I have this like IF booklet that I created, and it's the concept of part. Oh, I wonder if I have it for you. Basically, it's the concept of like, can I get it for a second?
Sure.
I want to show you like an, okay, hold on one second. It's the concept of parts. Hold on one second.
Sure.
Let's see. Okay, I don't think I have it. We're gonna have to do another Instagram live on it. But basically, it's like these dolls that I have. I might have used it in the past. Where when you are parenting or when you're struggling, and this is even beyond parenting. Okay, it might be that you're very reactive. Like, who is present? What thought? What feeling? Or what emotion is being present that is too difficult to tolerate in that experience? Like for any mom right now or any dad or anybody in a caretaker role, I want you, if you're able to slow down, right? Change happens, and even just this awareness, and I feel like we've spoken about this before, but like repetition is the best teacher. Like when you notice that you raise your voice, is it like I'm alone, or I'm so angry, or it's too much, or nothing I do helps, or my body just feels like so tense, right? Like I want you to drop into one layer a little deeper, because unconscious is when we're just repeating our behavior. Consciousness is so powerful. Like even just, I want you to, it's almost like bending down to that kid who's screaming and just like being like, hey buddy, I'm here. Keep screaming. I'm here. I don't need you to change your behavior. So I'm almost saying like, could you drop down to eye level? I know you're smiling, so I want to hear. And just see, just make contact with either the thought, the feeling, or the emotion, and it could be a sensation on your body. I mean, here, chime in. I want to hear what you have to say on
Yeah,
that.
no, I think of that as self-connection. Like that's I'm actually trying to show that now in my reels what it looks like. But yeah, it's any point of connecting to ourselves and what's happening inside of us. That already is going to shift so many things. Like you said, like it's you're making contact with yourself and what's happening instead of doing like what the the cycle, the whatever it is that our body's used to doing, or our mind, or whatever it is. I mean, mind and body are one. So yeah, it's like to connect to anything. For me, it's actually easier to connect to my thoughts than it is to my feelings. Like if I have to think about what am I feeling, what am I feeling? I don't know. I get lost. For me, it's just like I immediately just go to like what's happening inside of me. I start like hearing my voices out loud, whatever it is. Inside myself, I hear my voice, the voices are going on inside of me, and then the more I listen, the more I'm able to then connect to myself. That already creates a pause, and then I'm already feeling a sense of groundedness. Like for me, self connection brings groundedness, brings actually it is presence. Right? You said like we want to do like connecting to myself is presence. I'm not connecting to my child, but I'm connecting to myself. So that's for me like the first point of
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think that I love how you're sharing that. I love how you're sharing, for you, it's thoughts. Um, for me, it's feelings, not the needing to nitpick feelings. It's being present with my body, because when I'm either numbing out with being on the phone or like filling my time, or if I'm very easily agitated, what's happening is that I'm not connected to my body
Mm.
because I have too much. It's either too much stimulation or too little. So either I don't feel like I'm connected enough, let's say to myself or to another adult, right? Kid connection is different than adult connection. Or it's too much on my mind or my body. So for me, and I think a lot of children need the same thing. For me, it's actually like, hold on one second. Like I'll literally do like a somatic. I'll like push. I'll feel like my arms. I'll push against like my triceps. I might put my back against a wall, and I'll just like notice my breath. I don't care if my breath is shallow or it's deep. I'm like, I am here right now, or like I can be present with discomfort, right? Because a lot of kids get dysregulated, and myself, I get dysregulated when I'm uncomfortable. I like being comfortable. I don't know about you guys, but I like being comfy. So, and comfy means something so different for everyone. Like comfy could be like surrounded by my four sisters and their million kids, right? Like, but like part of life and part of growth is expanding our tolerance and capacity to be with what's new or what's uncomfortable. because then we can more easily move around the world. Your child's going to bring a new experience. Your relationship's going to bring a new experience. There's uncomfortable things, right? And adults are able to have like more bandwidth for different uncomfortable things and over time become more tolerable and actually less uncomfortable. So
Yes.
like for you, it's your thoughts. For me, it's my feelings. And I think just like I could just share for myself, I don't know about for you, connection with self doesn't feel good all the time. And it doesn't always feel like connection with self. I'm just going to share that. Like it doesn't feel like we're going to hop off of this conversation with Esther and I'm going to realize that I'm feeling angry that my kid is sick and that, you know, my husband and I just had a disagreement and look in the mirror and be like, hi, babe, I'm right here for you. Just want to say.
Yeah, no, totally. I actually usually feel completely overwhelmed and stressed out or like angry or frustrated or, in pain or something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
Hmm.
guess I feel like what I'm wanting to convey, which I think we're doing a pretty good job just in our conversation with each other, is like these things, and this is honestly the anatomy of change. If you want to think about like neurocellular patterns that really change your brain and the way that your mind operates, because we have these unconscious like procedural memory, which I'll talk about in a second. But believe me, the reason I'm sharing this is because feeling good, feeling okay, and being okay are often on the other ends of a spectrum for each other, especially for people with anxiety or this is a new experience. And what I want to offer people here is like your pathway to being okay might not feel so okay, but what we want to do is to open your mind. And this is the whole point of trauma healing and anxiety relief is actually that we're offering a foreign experience for your mind and body that becomes healthier and sustainable. So if you
Mm.
don't have a template for parenting, if you might not have had so much presence in your life as a kid or as an adult, and you're listening to me and believe me, and then you hop off and you think like, wait, is this supposed to feel good? We're supposed to help you give tools so that you can tolerate your emotions a little bit better or tap into the emotions that are present because the more you can tolerate that, you're going to feel better over a longer period of time. And we're almost like creating something that's a little different, which is
Mhm.
better for you and your kids for the long run. Is that making sense?
Yeah, you're saying that if you can be with the unpleasant, the deeply unpleasant emotions, that's what's going to bring you closer to being okay even while you feel the unpleasant emotion versus maybe now when one feels the unpleasant emotion, it just takes them completely out of their window of tolerance, right? Am I understanding?
Yeah, yeah. I'm basically saying, hey, listen, like we're offering you something that the goal is to make you feel comfortable. What we want to do is we want to help you have capacity to feel comfortable in a little bit of a wider window than just coming back to this tiny little piece of whatever it is that you are usually comfortable with either escaping or your reactivity or maybe like whatever thoughts and feelings you have that of coping right now, which good for you that you do have what you have. And because essentially that's also part of you do that without even saying anything to your kids. Okay. Imagine you do nothing. You don't change your parenting strategy. If you shift the way you relate to your emotions or your reality, you're already providing something that's
Yes. What was the last one you said? You're already providing something that's
providing something that is different. And that
yes.
difference is where change happens.
Yes. Yes, 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 yes. For me, that's been so helpful. Like to connect to what is right now in the moment, despite how intolerable it feels. I honestly believe, like, yeah, I say this often to like people around me is that like I find that so much of these hurtful strategies or the unhelpful strategies that we engage in come from being deeply, deeply uncomfortable with unpleasant emotions. And the more we can be with unpleasant emotions, the less we resort to those things. That's what I see within myself and those around me.
One
It's like, it's
second.
almost like,
I love what you just said.
yeah, I don't know. For me, it's like suddenly one day I had an epiphany. It's like that simple. It's like the more we can be with unpleasant emotions, the less we're gonna like, I don't know, I find that we do such funny things when we can't be with it.
I mean,
We just,
yeah, if you think about survival, we go to fight, which is like I'm fighting with you. You said something, flight, which is like I'm running away or disconnecting or dissociating. The kid's like, "Ma, are you there?" And you're like, I'm flying away on a kite. I don't really know how to be here. I suddenly have a doctor's appointment. Suddenly Tati needs dinner, right? Like suddenly you found a reason to not be present. Or Chaimel has his homework, or suddenly you're gone, right? Or you're listening to them, but you're like your eyes are glazed, right? Or there's like
yeah,
you're frozen and you're panicking and they feel like, okay, now there's nobody home to talk to because my mom's in freeze, right? Or
yeah.
right,
Or you're
like we
trying
do
to
these.
control it and make it stop or fix it. Like we just do such funny things. And I have so much compassion for it because I do the same all the time. But it's for me, it like really boils down to that. But when I can be with the unpleasant emotion, suddenly I'm able to just be with it and it slows everything down. And then I'm able to, it's like, wow, all I had to do was be with it. And then suddenly, like, there's clarity and groundedness that comes to me. And then I'm able to proceed in a way that is so much more aligned with my values.
Well, you know what I think about? I love what you just said that. It's basically about creating spaciousness. So I just want to
Yeah.
talk to like the two different categories of people who are listening to this or that exist just because I want to like acknowledge them. Sometimes like gathering information and reading a book and having these kinds of conversations is all that you need.
Mm.
Like aware of your survival strategies. Maybe, right, somebody just asked, how do you learn to be with it? So I just want to actually answer that question before, right, as it's being asked.
Yeah.
You want to learn about survival strategies, which is like fight is when we kind of like we'll get into a disagreement or we'll fight against something, push it away. Flight is when we kind of run away, act, shut down. Freeze is we kind of become frozen and we like panic. Okay. Fawn is where we people please and we just like try to give them like pacify them. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Um, but like what and so I think there's this piece of like sometimes having the knowledge helps us become a little bit more aware and maybe getting in touch with a part of ourselves that maybe like didn't have certain emotional experiences already provides us like that nurturance or that awareness and then we're able to shift the way that we do things. So for some people like that's enough and having the resources is enough. Okay. Category A. Category B, I know there's more, but I just want to simplify. Category B is you have a lot of this information.
Yeah.
It might be brand new for you. It might not be brand new for you, but you still feel kind of stuck. It's almost like you have like gum at the bottom of your shoe. And as much as you keep trying to change your behaviors and your patterns, you keep going back to it. Okay. It's something called procedural learning, which
You mentioned that. Okay.
yeah,
Yes.
which I'm going to talk about that in 1 second, where like your brain is needing a little bit more help. I'll just say one thing on this, and then I'll talk about what could be helpful. Procedural learning. There was this guy who wanted to understand the neural networks of our brain, just so we take out the judgment of when you have years. And basically, there was this guy who learned how to ride a bike, and he wanted to figure out if he could learn how to ride a bike handlebars backwards, right? So the bike is the other way, handlebars backwards. He tried. It took him 7 to 8 months to learn. After because he kept falling off, right? Because the balance part. People were learning. The brain knew how do you hold the balance. Okay, 7 to 8 months later, he's riding a bike and he's riding it backwards and he's fine. He's riding straight. You see him like, and I could link up the video. And he's riding it fine, but the handlebars are backwards and he's riding it. He's good. He tries to go back to riding the bike with the handlebars forward and he can't. His brain can't do it because it took him 7 to 8 months, which by the way, that's how long it takes adults to restructure their procedural learning, which is literally like the networks in the brain to change the behavior for the brain to know this is how I'm doing. And it took him time to unlearn that and to relearn how to ride a bike straight. Wait, stay with me. His kid who's 4 years old, he was teaching how to learn how to ride a bike. First time he taught his kid how to learn a bike, he twisted the handlebars backwards and he said, "Hi, darling, this is how we learn how to ride a bike." Within a month, the kid learned how to ride a bike with the backwards handlebars. This was the template that the kid had. Okay? And so obviously he then also taught him how to do the other. But the point is that children and the neuroplasticity is more gentle. If you have an original template, it's easier to work on that. But adults, here's the thing. If you have a template, please don't expect yourself, and it's hard for you, please don't expect yourself to just learn how to ride a bike with the handlebars backwards. So for those of you who are like me and a lot of us, sometimes we need a little bit of extra support. Now that might mean like taking a course like yours. For me, I've signed up for either courses or I've taken books or I've gone to therapy. or I've hired consultants like to help me personalize whatever the skills are to my struggles or to my blind spots. And I just want to say, like, there's nothing wrong with that. Or if you, let's say, are reading a book, or if you want to resources, please give yourself the time. Like sometimes reading a book, right? Or watching a training, let it marinate, let it sit on your head. I want you to imagine like it takes time to shift the brain, but it is possible, right?
Yes, I love that you mentioned that. I often say, I say, you said it takes 7 to 8 months. Like it takes so long, and I think so many of us are under the impression that it should take faster. It should take faster. This should not take so long, and then we give up, and we're
Wait, you went mute for a second. I don't know why. Did you get a call? Now I hear you. Okay.
sorry.
That
What I was
feel like it should take faster than, but wait, can I chime in on something? I do have to say something. If you're doing the wrong kind of work, or if you have the wrong information, you might try to do healing work, or you might make shifts and it's not going to work. I just have to say one thing because
mm,
I've read parenting books, or I've been in the wrong therapy. I was connected to the wrong people for me, my struggles, and my family. So I do have to say, with the right
yes,
person, right wisdom. I just have to say that because you have amazing content. Like I clearly love your content and you're spot on. You're trauma informed. Like I feel like you get it. So I want to say, like, we're talking about obviously with the right kind of knowledge. You shouldn't be struggling with the same issues for 5 years.
no,
You struggling with it, but you need to be seeing incremental
incremental.
shifts.
I was just going to say that they're incremental. I always see shifts, but they're so tiny. It almost feels negligible. It's almost like seriously, I for a month I've been doing this, and like it's all I see. But they accumulate over time. And like to me, one of the biggest lessons I learned in my own journey is that it's possible. Change is possible. Like I remember when I first started out, and like you speaking about information. By the way, information was so helpful to
Yeah.
me, super helpful to me. But also, there was a certain point where like yeah, it only was able to take me up to a certain point, and then taking courses and doing practices and having a coach myself is what helped me integrate it on a whole new level, like in my body. And I'm still learning to do that. But what was I going to say again? Oh, there were certain things like I would read. I imagine people feel that way when they see my content, probably. I would see certain scenarios of how someone managed, navigated something with their child. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, like, I can't even imagine ever doing that. Like, that is so, like, the vocabulary and the way the parent navigated is completely out of my, like, reach. It's just
Or,
not even in, like, my.
or like you don't get my kid. There's no way that's gonna land over, you know?
That's also true for sure. Yeah, but it was like it just felt so out of reach for me. But I had a dream. I was like, I want to get there one day. I want to be able to say that I did that. And oh, the change was so incremental. I remember sometimes being so frustrated and being like, I'm never gonna get there. I don't even know why I'm trying. And now it's been what, almost 8 years since I've been trying. And I look back and so often I actually act in the ways that I, wanted to. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I got here. I got here. It was like, and again, in so many ways, I still don't manage to get there, and I'm still really, really very much a work in progress. I probably will be my whole life, not probably for sure, um, but I still do. It's amazing to look back, but again, it's like 7, 8 years, right? It's like it's very. It takes a long
Yeah.
time, but of course, I've seen it. I saw incremental changes all along the way.
I think it's also the way that we shift our relationship to our healing shifts. Like I know for me, one of the big pieces was like the right kind of people. Did you see there was a post the other day that I saw? I shared it. It said like when you find your people, when you find your right people, you realize that you were okay all along. I think finding our people,
Mhm.
either our friends or people like on platforms here or like information, like find your people or the wisdom in the world that resonates with you, your struggle and your experience so that you feel seen. Because I know that like getting the right information is very powerful, right? Understanding the way that your mind and your body work in like a non-shaming, but like in an informative, empowering way is so important. For me, delivery today in our peer group, actually, with the trauma therapist, we were all talking about like when we learn information from therapists, there's one therapist who talks about things in such a way, and there's somebody else who I love, who I respect and I learned so much from, especially in treating complex trauma. Her name is Dolores Mascaras, and she wrote a few books on like dissociation, PTSD. She has such a matter of fact way of talking about complicated concepts. And I channel her so much. And I think sometimes that's why clients have felt like relief in our work because it's like this concept, okay, so this is how your body's using a very expensive way of coping. I want us to be able to use less expensive ways, not financially, but right in terms of our energy or
I get
impacting
it. Yes.
but I'm just like, I feel like also like the way people deliver information, like take your time to choose the people that it resonates, like it lands. I love your content because personally I feel like very non-shamed. So I could listen. Someone could be giving over the same message and I'm just gonna feel uncomfortable and I'll shut down. So I think there's that. I do think also having like the right tools and understanding like the like a pathway to move through it. Oh, the other thing I was gonna say, remember speaking to one of my consultants a long time ago. And I said to her, like, just tell me when like I'm gonna be done healing. Like I'm learning all these complicated concepts. Like, tell me when it's gonna be like smooth sailing. And she's like, darling, never. She's like, you shift your relationship to life. She's like, all of us experts have times because I was saying, I'm like, you're a trauma expert. You contributed that. She's like, here's the thing, like life has a way of throwing us punches. She's like, but what I learned is I know I expect them. I expect
Mm.
phases of life to be easier, kids to have struggles, marriage. She's like, but I navigate them with so much more ease because I'm like, oh, here goes the washing machine. Oh, now we're on the super spin cycle. Okay, but I also know that then there's going to be a dry cycle. So some of it's like learning skills, obviously being more present, developing a better foundation. Like I know for myself, my regulatory capacities are incredibly more than they ever were, right? I'm like, that's mine. That's my investment. Like the biggest gift we could give ourselves. Um, but second piece is right, like shifting experiences to things and to realities, which is honestly the best way to model life. So I feel like that's
Yeah.
something that really shifted for me.
Yeah, like how we think about our reality. Like I love what you said, like expecting that there will be hard things, expecting that there will be challenges and difficulties. Because I think that I don't know if it's maybe it's just a human thing or if it's our culture, but it's almost like we have this like notion that like if something is hard or unpleasant, like something's wrong. And it's like nothing's wrong. Like that's life.
Right.
Right? Like meaning yes, there's as in like, yes, maybe there's something that you want to, it's calling attention to something that you might want to shift or contribute change or
Yeah.
whatever, but as in wrong as in like your life is not wrong, meaning like it's life.
Yeah, I think I do have to say, I think some of us that have a hard time, like none of us like being uncomfortable, but I think that sometimes when we don't have a template of like reality, like just like children who never saw mom and dad fight or people fight and then resolve conflict in a way and then reconnect, the concept of fighting is very scary.
Mm,
So, because it's almost like, oh my God, does this mean that you guys are getting divorced or that you hate each other? Versus like, oh, mommy and daddy like disagreed on something and we took time to figure it out. And like, okay, now we're having dinner together. We're okay. So I think like when there's not language or you don't even have to say the words, but if there isn't that template of modeling that, or by there's people who the only way they know how to see connection and passion is when people fight. Some people are drawn to chaos, to fighting, because that's the only way to connect, or else this chronic disconnection. But I think sometimes there's this lack of a template of like life is a mixture of good times. So
yes.
I think that like what I'll see sometimes with people, like kind of what you said, they go through different capacities. People sometimes who either have trauma or they don't, or they have some neglect, or they don't really have emotional vocabulary. What I'll find is either they have no template to follow, so they kind of just feel lost, or they compare themselves to a completely unrealistic expectation. And I'm like, wait, hold on one second. Like, you're describing a fantasy. Can I just bring you to reality? You've been
Yeah.
in a relationship, or you're doing parenting pretty good, So I think that piece is just like, yeah, like, or even like life. I was talking to therapists in my trauma consultation I do, and we were talking about these existential dilemmas or this loneliness, and I was like, yeah, but we're not supposed to escape it. Like, there's realities of life that like it's just part of our life, and it's a matter of like how do we navigate
Yes.
finding, how do we navigate connection and disconnection. So I love what it's the life experience, which we're not going to go into an existential discussion, but I like being with all these things.
Yes, exactly. Like what that therapist told you. It's like, okay, it's kind of like she expects it already. So then when it happens, she moves through it with more ease. I love how you said that. I often say with my parenting approach is that it's not easier, but there is more ease
Mm.
because like, yeah, I don't feel as lost. I feel more like, okay, and so yeah, that changes everything for me. I noticed our time. We're almost up, even though I can talk to you for hours. I'm like, how did the time go by so fast? I don't know what you want to because we have so many directions we can go with the next 5 minutes. But you did mention somebody asked a question like, how do we be with our emotions? I don't know if you want to answer it. I know it's something that like you can answer, but it's also something that isn't like an
So I'm
answer.
going to ask
Yeah.
you to take your hand and put it on your heart.
Oh, you're asking me.
I'm gonna ask whoever is listening, and I'm gonna
Okay.
ask if you're comfortable. I want you to put your hand on your heart. And if you're comfortable, you can close your eye. What you could do is put your second hand on your first hand as well, so you're almost supporting it. I want you to close your eyes and really just like check what your heart is doing. And whatever emotions are there, I want you to kind of just um, feel the love, the care, the support from Bleemy and myself, or to people who are here to support you in your parenting, in your life right now. Just see if you could take in our words that say to you, you matter, and wherever you are
You are what? I didn't
enough
hear what you said.
right now.
Oh,
Or just feel the warmth of your hand on your heart and go with the words of you matter. And if the words don't resonate, I want you to just put your heart and just notice how your heart is doing. Because the way that we become more capable of action is first just connecting with ourselves. And you might notice some tears, some sadness. You might notice curiosity. I think the first thing is first just connecting with your own heart and just letting yourself know that you're here with it and you're curious about what you can do for today to show up for yourself. And if right now you need like a heap full of words of from wherever you're coming from or with whatever you're dealing with, you are rocking it for just even getting up or listening to a conversation. Like take that in into all the cells of your body. And if that's what feels right, stay with that. Look, we always have to start with first feeling up and acknowledging what is, right? And I think if there's any energy left over to be curious, to scroll through some of your videos, or to wonder about shifting something or deepening something, like we're here to be a resource, or there's information. But like, I think the most important thing for me, and you can share, is like just first honor you, yourself, and your story and your heart, because you know yourself the best. Else. And I guess the reason I shared me and you is just because like I'm open here sharing about my very human experience. So I hope there could be like a communal support between us for people. So, but yeah, that's personally sometimes when I feel tough or they're sharing lots of words and they're just doing like an emotional like dump, or they're running around or angry, like what I'll usually do to and or I might just say, either I'll just be present with them and just be like, keep doing what you're doing, like I'm right here with you, or like I see it. Or I might just say like, and some people are like, don't tell me to put my hand on my heart. I might just put my hand on my heart and just be like, oh, you're holding so much. Oh, you're working so hard. I see how hard you're. It feels like nothing's working. I see how hard you're working. And when you do the work, like something eventually makes a shift. But yeah, like the guy, like he kept falling off the bike for 7 months.
yeah. Yeah. So for me, like learning to be with, um, started by being with whatever was in moments when there wasn't a lot going on, when I wasn't freaking out or panicking, just like this. Like I took like 5 minutes. Again, if 5 minutes is too much, you can start with 1 minute. It doesn't have to be like, again, similar to what you did, but I would close my eyes and then share. Actually, for me, it was helpful if I did it out loud. I share out loud what it is that I'm feeling. So let's say like I feel, I don't know, sort of like I'm noticing like a buzzing in my body. Yeah. And then now I'm noticing that I feel a little bit embarrassed about that. And then, right, and like that, just keep following what's going on inside of me and simply just connecting to it, saying it out loud. For me, that has really been helpful to me in like learning to be with what is. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure there's like so many, like, that's why for me it felt funny to share an answer because I imagine there's so many different paths towards that. And also, yeah, sometimes it's not like it's sometimes having a therapist or a coach or something um, is the thing that's most helpful to somebody in learning how to do that. Sometimes like a somatic practice or
Yeah,
something.
but well, actually, based on what you just said, no, we have based on what you said, actually, that is a tool from somatic
Oh,
therapy, which is
it
essentially
is.
right, which is essentially what you're saying is, and I love that you shared that, is like being able to get in touch with the body, and that no emotion or experience is bad. It just is. So like, there's a buzzing in my body, right? Or I feel kind of like small, or I'm feeling kind of overwhelmed. So, like, you're making more space around you for the things that are inside of you. And
Yeah.
doing that, you're expanding your mind and body's capacity, and you're labeling, right? There's something called somatic sequencing. Somatic sequencing is allowing the body to move through the somatic experience, the body's experience of an emotion. One of the ways we actually hang back out in the window of tolerance is being able to allow emotions and feelings to move through our body. So I love your ex.
Yeah. I do it very often. I've actually learned how to do it in courses that I've taken. Yeah, like I actually did a course with my sister like this, where we started out every single course. We would pair two people together. Oh, she's here, my sister. Hi, Esty. She's the one who led the course. And we would pair people together, and each person would get 5 minutes to simply share whatever's happening in their body, whatever feelings, whatever sensations, to just share. And the other person listens silently. There's something so powerful about that for
Oh my,
me.
I've done that in a training too. That's very intimate, like where they say, I am, I feel, and you just listening,
Yeah.
right? 5 straight. And there's tears, and then there's connection. It's almost like with couples, what we sometimes will do. I don't know if you've ever done this, or like relationships, is that one, and then is like one person, like I'll put my hand on my heart and you put your hand on my heart, and it'll just be like, I feel. Another person looks in your eyes and says, I feel. It's just, and no judgment. I feel shame. I feel funny.
Yeah.
Close. I feel sad. Well,
Yeah.
I just feel like being with those core emotions and like taking off the shame of shame or discomfort with it.
Being with it, yeah. Yeah. Like most of the time when I do these things, the whole entire time I'm just saying how I feel pressure to entertain you. And like I don't know what to say.
Right.
But I love that because I'm being with what is. And for me, that's such a practice, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's also a form of mindfulness because instead of being in the buzz, it's like I'm sharing the buzz with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Esther, thank you so much for this. Thank you so much for this. So if people want more from you, how can they reach out to you?
I mean, they could check out our page. We do have a group practice. We have like online and in person. I do have a trauma training now that we're filling up for trauma therapists around the world.
Wow.
Mm. But yeah, honestly, believe me, you gave me such a gift. I love these conversations. I love your content. I always tell you, I'm like, I love your content. It makes me feel so seen. So like, keep doing what you're doing, and thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And like, I just love how I feel so much warmth, compassion, care from you in everything that you say and everything that you share. It just like feels like you're like holding everybody in a hug or something.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes. So thank you for being here and for showing up for all the parents.
yeah. Of course, yo. Like we're in this together, right? We're all doing our very best,
Yeah.
whatever they look like. Believe me, when
Yeah.
does your course start? Do you run it every few weeks, or
No,
how does it work?
only twice a year. Yeah. So I have one coming up now, January 10th. And it's a 5 week course, and it's a lot of what you mentioned. There's information, and then there's also the tools. There's a perspective shift, there's the tools, and then I also really try to create an experience where parents are like held compassionately, so that if anything they gain from there is just being held compassionately um, in their struggles as a parent, you know. So yeah, and it's January 5th. They can sign up. It's everything. All the information is on my page.
How many
So
people
yes.
group? Like, is it, I'm just curious in terms of the group size.
They're pretty large, but it's webinar, so it's not like we don't. It's no one's cameras are on except for mine, so that way it doesn't like. Yes, I do webinar style, and then but there's also live Q&A, so people can ask questions. I have like a Q&A section people can ask, so I
Love-
dedicate time to that as well because I like for it to be interactive.
I love that you do that. I've liked
Yeah.
your growth. Thank you so much, Bleemy,
Thank
for
you.
the week, and we shall be in
Yes.
touch. Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for joining. Take care.